This is Brandy, otherwise known as Mystery of Diamonds, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hey y'all! Okay, so we have the Wolfie nails going on again. I am still working on my Wolf-along for Wolfpack's Wolf-along thing. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get finished, but I have gotten pretty far. So, this is episode 3 of Forensic Fridays. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, I am recording this on Friday, but due to my internet, it probably will not be up until Saturday morning. So, I apologize. I've been kind of sick this week, and I've been under the weather with allergies and sinuses. I got a sinus infection. Yay me! But so it's been kind of hard because I kind of like sounded like I was underwater, being as stuffed up as I was, and I was just like, man, this is so not fun. But you know, and I really wanted to do this because I did go back to work today, and you know, I love being able to do my forensics, and you know, I want it to be able to keep doing this, right? And so I hope that y'all can forgive me for this coming out, uh, you know, on Saturday instead of the Friday. It is being recorded on Friday, so I can give you that. But for those that don't know, every Friday, what I try to do is I will you'll see me diamond painting, and then I'm going to do a voiceover of a case, that forensic case, and then what in the world was that? Then I'm going to do a mystery that y'all will solve, and then I'll tell you the answer. First, okay, let me back up. First, I'll tell you the answer to last week's mystery. And if you have not watched last week's mystery, be warned that you want to go ahead. I'm going to put it in the eye right here. I'll put last week's mystery so that you can go and listen to it so that you don't get the spoiler alert. Okay? So if you have not watched it and you don't want the spoiler alert, go watch that last week's Forensic Friday episode 2. Okay? Because I'm fixing to get into the solution to last week's mystery, and then we'll get into the case, and then we'll start this week's mystery. So, come on and join me for our Forensic Friday. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you the solution to last week's mystery. So the person who is guilty was Elaine. And it was a syringe full of toxin was hidden inside the mattress. And when Faustus Dutton lay down, he compressed the mattress, forcing the needle into his back and depressing the plunger. And the syringe could only have been hidden by an expert seamstress. So the explanation for this was that all 3 siblings had the same motive, to prevent their father from giving away their inheritance. And living in the house, all 3 had the same opportunity to sneak into their father's bedroom during the daytime. All 3 had an opportunity to steal the fatal drug from the nurse's station when their father was recovering from his angioplasty 2 weeks before his death. And any of the 3 could have gotten into their father's room to hide the syringe in the daytime when it was predictably empty and unlocked. Motive and opportunity being equal, Tubert focused on the means by which the toxin had been delivered. The room was locked from the inside, so the victim was alone in the room when he was killed. He died within seconds of being injected, so he couldn't have locked the door behind the murderer before realizing that he had been poisoned. If some sort of drug-delivering projectile had been shot into the victim, they would have found the needle when they did the autopsy. So Tubert deduced that the murderer had secreted an extended syringe full of the succinylcholine inside the mattress with the needle pointing up, just below the surface of the mattress. When Faustus Dutton had laid down and compressed the mattress against the platform bed, his enormous weight had pushed the needle into his back and compressed the plunger, self-administering the deadly toxin. Assuming the death to have been a heart attack, no one had checked for needle marks at the time of death, and the murder weapon had not been visible when the body was removed because the mattress had expanded back to its normal height once again concealing the deadly needle within. The murderer, not anticipating that the room would be locked up, had planned to remove the syringe without a trace in the same manner in which it was planted. When Tubert examined the bed, he saw no evidence of tampering on the mattress, but he knew that the murder weapon had to be inside it, which meant that the murderer had to have been the only suspect with the skills to take the mattress apart and sew it back together so expertly that no one would notice. Elaine, the professional seamstress. Now, considering that that story actually had succinylcholine in it, that kind of brings me to the case that I want to talk about. And they titled this case in my forensic book as Dr. Coppolino's Deadly House Calls. So I'm actually going to read this case and might give you a little bit of additional information about it afterwards. So a frantic late-night telephone call brought a local physician to the Florida home of Doctors Carl and Camilla Coppolino. The physician arrived to find Camilla beyond help. Camilla Coppolino's body, unexamined by anyone, was buried in her family's plot in her home state of New Jersey. In other words, they buried her and they believed that it was a heart attack. And so there was no autopsy that was ever performed on her before she was buried. So a little more than a month later, Carl married a moneyed socialite, Mary Gibson. News of Carl's marriage infuriated Marjorie Farber, a former New Jersey neighbor of Dr. Coppolino, who had been having an affair with the good doctor. Soon Marjorie had an interesting story to recount to investigators. Her husband's death 2 years before, although ruled to be from natural causes, had actually been murder. All right, so before I go on any further there, one of the things was that when Carl ended up moving, because he actually did end up moving with his wife, Camilla, to Florida. And the thing is that both of them were doctors. But when they moved, Camilla, she failed the test to be able to practice medicine in Florida. And so at that time, he was disabled and no longer able to actually be a doctor himself. So they were both having to live off of his disability, which was significantly less. And so he had started dating this socialite, Mary. And it's kind of funny because after his wife died, he very quickly ended up marrying her. And so it'll kind of go on to tell about that. So, before he moved to Florida, he had been having this affair with Colonel Farber's wife. And so now she's coming up because she had actually followed him and she was hoping to reignite their flame or whatever. And when she found out about what was happening, she told the story about her husband's death. So her husband's death 2 years before, although ruled to be from natural causes, had actually been murder. Carl, an anesthesiologist, had given Marjorie a syringe containing some medication and told her to inject her husband, William, while he was sleeping. Ultimately, Marjorie claimed that she was unable to inject the full dose and called Carl, who finished the job by suffocating William with a pillow. Marjorie Farber's astonishing story was supported in part by Carl's recent increase in his wife's life insurance. Camilla's $65,000 policy, along with his new wife's fortune, would keep Dr. Coppolino in high society for the rest of his life. Based on this information, authorities in New Jersey and Florida now obtained exhumation orders for both William Farber and Camilla Coppolino. After examination of both bodies, Dr. Coppolino was charged with the murder of William and Camilla. So they went to the trial, and when they did this, they started off in New Jersey, and they tried him there first. And he did take the stand in that particular case. So officials decided to try him first in New Jersey for William Farber. The autopsy that they did not reveal any evidence of poisoning, but there was a strong case for strangulation. Um, and so the absence of toxicological findings left the jury to deliberate the conflicting medical expert testimony versus the sensational story told by a scorned and embittered woman. And so in the end, he was acquitted in New Jersey, because basically what happened is he ended up taking the stand for himself, and his defense lawyers were actually pretty good. They discredited this woman. They said, okay, she's simply upset that he decided that he no longer wanted to be with her. Um, and she was trying to find any and every way to get back at him. And what better way than to come up with a story that said that he's the reason that her husband was dead. And they didn't go into it as much in the book here. And so I was reading on a news thing about it. And what they said was that she had used to go to him for trying to, I think it was to quit smoking. And so he would hypnotize her. And so she said that she would do anything under this hypnosis, and that he had given her this syringe full of this fluid, and he told her to inject her husband in the leg with it. So she had started to, and then she kind of, a little bit got in there, she said, and that she just didn't feel like she could put the whole dose, and he started getting sick. So she freaked out, and she called Dr. Coppolino, and he came over, and she said that he took a plastic bag, and he tried to strangle him with the plastic bag, and they were fighting and whatever, and then he ended up just suffocating him, and she's like, no, stop, never mind. And so then he ended up suffocating him with a pillow. That was her story. But once again, the defense went in full on and did a whole bunch to discredit, especially when they exhumed the body. And what they saw was that even though there was evidence of like strangulation, they had brought in some additional experts who had said, well, based off what we see that this was done post-mortem. And they believe that when they exhumed the body, that's how the neck seemed to have gotten messed up, because in the autopsy for him, because they did have an autopsy for him, there was no signs of like that deep strangulation and whatnot. So that's another one that kind of discredited. And so he ended up becoming acquitted in the New Jersey case. So then we move on to Florida. So the Florida trial presented another chance to bring Carl Coppolino to justice. Recalling Dr. Coppolino's career as an anesthesiologist, it was theorized that Coppolino had exploited his access to the many potent drugs that was used in surgery to commit these murders, specifically an injectable paralytic agent called succinylcholine. Let me re-say that. Succinylcholine chloride. After having Camilla's body exhumed, it was found that Camilla had been injected in her left buttock shortly before her death. Ultimately, a completely novel procedure for detecting succinylcholine. Why can I not say this today? Succinylcholine chloride was devised. Elevated levels of succinic acid were found in Camilla's brain, which proved that she had received a large dose of the paralytic drug shortly before her death. This evidence, along with the finding of the same drug residues in the injection site on her buttock, was presented in the Florida murder trial of Carl Coppolino, who was convicted of second-degree murder. Now, the problem is, he was convicted of second-degree murder, but people were like, well, why not first degree? Because second degree indicates that there was no premeditation. However, if he injected her in the left buttock, then it was enough of the paralytic drug to kill her, then there had to have been, premeditation going on there. However, he did get the conviction, but he only served 12 and a half years. They actually let him out for good behavior after 12 and a half years, and he ended up, I think they said that he died in 2017. And he even wrote a book that was talking about the crime that never happened off this. So I thought it was kind of interesting that the case or the mystery that I had given you had kind of gone along with the one that I was going to talk about today of Dr. Carl Coppolino. I think it's kind of interesting that, you think that there's these certain drugs that aren't going to leave any trace in the body, and yet as forensic science increases and you get more information about it, they're coming up with more and more tests, and so there's a lot of these poisons that are becoming more detectable the more that they look into it and find chemical signatures. Okay, so are we ready for the mystery this week? Now, I'm kind of excited because I went a little bit different route to get the mystery this time, and it's from just a different source than the one that I got than the other ones that I have, and I kind of want to switch it up. So I figured I would start off with this one this week. It's a little bit easier to solve than some of the other ones, but I still think it's kind of interesting. Okay, so here we go. Police Constable Michael Caledon picked his way gingerly around the piles of gravel and dirt and dust-covered debris strewn about by the road repair crew. Buffing his black shoes to the proper wattage each morning was his least favorite activity, and he had no intention of wasting the effort in his first call of the day. He'd parked the patrol car farther away than necessary for the same reason, to keep it clean. When the crew started up at, he looked at his watch, 7 o'clock, only 9 minutes away, there would be plenty of dirt and noise. He'd seen this bunch move in yesterday to rip up the street. So complete was his concentration that he found himself on the little flagstone walk at 13 Humber View before he realized it. That surprise, coupled with his sudden awareness that the old lady was sitting on the porch waiting for him, must have showed on his face, for Miss Van Nile explained very sweetly, "I always have my coffee on the porch in this nice weather. Sometimes I even get out before the sun is over those trees. We'll have to go inside today, though. There's not much point in being out here when they start." She waved at the silent machinery on the street. "What are you taking your coffee, young man?" Michael used the 3 short strides up the walk to gather himself. "Good morning." He held out his hands. "I'm here to get—" "What are you taking your coffee? I have some muffins, too, that my neighbor made." Michael didn't drink coffee, but how did he say no to such a nice old lady? Just half a cup, please, and milk, lots of milk." That was how. "Excuse me, then. I'll be right back." Miss Van Nile got up, shuffled over to the screen door, and went inside. Michael was having real trouble controlling his surprise. The lady was not behaving at all like a bereaved widow. 4 days earlier, in fact, at just this time, his watch now said 6:54. Her husband had been shot in their bed. He was also surprised by how well she spoke. Miss Van Nile was deaf, at least according to Sergeant Cossman. Michael had been sent because he was the best on the force at signing. So far, that skill had been entirely superfluous. His surprise was not diminished in the least when Miss Van Nile came back out the door saying, "No doubt you're wondering how we're able to communicate so easily. Well, I wasn't always deaf. Not until my accident 2 years ago. Here's your coffee, Constable. I can sign. Are you the one they said would come because you can sign?" "There's not much need. I'm pretty good at lips." "You get good. You have to. Besides, everybody always says the same things to old ladies anyway." Her smile grew even sweeter. Michael was so charmed he was almost able to ignore the taste of coffee. "My other little trick." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Now don't you tell anybody, Constable." Her smile grew wider and even more irresistible. "My other little trick is, I do all the talking. People don't mind if old ladies prattle on now, do they? Now, you want to know all about poor Alvin, don't you? I don't know why. I told those other nice policemen everything. Poor Alvin. We were only married 3 years, you see. He was my third husband. Without realizing it, Michael bit into a second muffin. He didn't say a word as Miss Van Nau continued. It happened when I was having my coffee here, just like this. It was a beautiful day, one of those extra special summer days, you know, clear, quiet, warm. Of course, I couldn't hear the shot, so poor Alvin. With a raucous cough, the first of the diesel engines started out on the street, followed by another, then a third, filling the air with a blend of aggressive clatter. The operators held the throttles open, not just to warm up their machines, but also to ensure that everyone in hearing distance would be awake to appreciate their efforts. Miss Van Nau winced. The early morning breeze had brought the exhaust fumes onto the porch. Come, she shouted over the din. We'll go inside. Would you carry the muffins? Michael picked up the plate and followed her. How, he thought to himself, how on earth am I going to tell Sergeant Cosman that such a sweet old lady is a liar? So what has tipped Michael Caledon to the realization that Miss Van Nau may not be all that she pretends? Do you think that you can figure out, I did give y'all an easy one on this one, but do you think you can figure out what exactly caused him to realize that she knows more about the shot that her husband received than what she's letting on? Well, we're going to take you back to the end of the video. Okay, so I think this pretty much concludes our story. I hope that you enjoyed that story about Dr. Carl Coppolino. I keep saying his name wrong, I think. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed hearing about that case, as well as I hope you enjoyed the mystery. Can you solve it? So just make sure that you put in those comments below what you think happened. All right. So if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button down below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing and become part of the Diamonds family. So I'm going to leave you like I always do. Reach for the stars, grab hold on, and never let go. Until my next video, bye guys.